Where should we camp next? It's the perennial question for campers around the country. Coming this April 4th, 2023, husband and wife combo, the creators of the RV Atlas, Jeremy and Stephanie Puglisi, third book, Where Should We Camp Next? National Parks. It's coming out. It's going to provide you over 300 plus answers to that very pressing question, national park style. Now, the Puglisis are the creators of the RV Atlas and hosts of the extremely popular RV Atlas podcast, which to date has more than 4 million downloads. God bless them for being with me, the amateur. Spending over 80 nights a year in their RV, not only with the two of them, but their family, and they don't even require counseling. I would say that dubs them as industry experts when it comes to all things family camping. In their third book, following Where Should We Camp Next, a USA Today's top 10 Best Reader's Choice Award winner, by the way, and Meet Me at the Campground, you can learn more about them in this book because we are going to talk all about it. That said, it is now time for another Launching Life's Journeys podcast. And guess who our guests are? You guessed it, Jeremy and Stephanie Puglisi. Welcome to the Launching Life's Journeys podcast.
Hi, Willie. Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you so much for having us on your show. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah, and I really do appreciate you guys. As we talked offline, 2 years in this industry, everywhere I go, your guys' name comes up, whether it's a reference about the book, the Tampa show, Hershey, everybody knows who you are. So I'm just thankful to you both to be in your company. Before we get it started into a lot, because you guys are a tremendous resource, because again, you live the lifestyle and you have for many years, let's get started with this phenomenal new book. Where Should We Camp Next? National Parks. Number one, Jeremy, Stephanie, what was your thought on writing yet another best-selling book in the RV and travel category? And what was your goal in writing this book?
Yeah, so I guess now almost 2 years ago, our first Where Should We Camp Next came out. And that's a 50-state guide to amazing campgrounds and other unique accommodations is that subtitle there, right? So it was a 50-state guide. So we did every state and we just kind of picked a variety of amazing places to camp there. So that was 2 years ago. And this book has not slowed down. It's just, if anything, gained in popularity over the years. We're very blessed. We're super happy that it just resonated with people that, yes, can Google anything in the world, right? And have so many internet resources. But at the same time, what a lot of people are looking for is just that bit of experience and crowdsourcing that we've done with a really tight group of experienced RVers and campers. And they just want you to get through all the noise, right? And tell them some great places to camp. So that book did great. And our publisher, definitely wanted more in that category. So that's where we came up with Where Should We Camp Next? National Parks. We decided, well, we've had an amazing experience as a family at the campground over the years. Like we say, the RV is a supporting character, right? In our journey. We love the RV. It is definitely like a member of the family, but it's not the main character. If you had to identify a main character, I think in our travel journey, it would be the campground. And we wanted to say, well, what was the next amazing campground experiences that we've had? And when we were kind of going through the options, national parks really stood out. I mean, is there anything more classic and epic than National Park Adventures?
And one of the things that's kind of lurking behind both of these books is that we were newbies 12 years ago, believe it or not. We got our first RV. And when we bought our first pop-up camper, we both kind of looked at each other and we were like, now where do we go? Like, it's actually a little bit difficult for new RV owners to figure out where to camp, because there's all these different systems. There's state park systems, there's national park systems, there's KOA, there's Jellystone. There wasn't one resource that tried to curate all of them and say, here's the best out of all of these different things. I mean, KOA's advertising their own campgrounds. Jellystone's advertising their own campgrounds. National park campgrounds exist in their own world. So it was actually really challenging for us to figure out where are there campgrounds to go to? Which ones are the good ones? Because there's definitely, there's a lot of great ones, but there's also a lot of not great ones. And so these books are that friend who sits around the campground who will not shut up about all the great campgrounds he's been to and just has like 1,000 recommendations and just goes on and on and on and on. It was, I guess, the resource that we wanted to have when we started, but we didn't have.
Yeah.
And I want to say it's the friend who knows you may have different tastes than they do. So I do think that that's something that Jeremy and I really strive to do in all of our work, right? On the podcast and in our writing, is not say that everybody should do it like us, right? There's people out there, I'll never forget some notes, that we've gotten over the years that are like, that's not camping, right? Like anytime you cover a resort or anytime. And it's like, we just don't have a bone in our body that cares how you like to camp, right? Like what we want to do is help you make the best match for you. And if that means boondocking in a national forest, like down the road from a national park and not seeing another person for miles, that's awesome. And if it means being at one of those resorts that has water slides that you come home to and maybe a dog walking service and they deliver pizza to your site, we love that for you, right? Like we just want everybody to experience what they want to experience. We don't want to push we don't have a camping agenda. We certainly don't want to push it on you.
That's such a great way to put it, is that we like everything. So I feel like that's like our superpower in terms of writing these books is, we'll go to a Jellystone park with water slides and, off the hook amenities. And then we'll go to a national park campground that doesn't have any hookups at all. And we'll enjoy all of it. And a lot of RVers settle into camping one way. People said, like, I'm a state park camper. I'm spending $30 a night. That RV resort is stupid. Or people settle into like, no, I'm an RV resort camper and I want to walk up a bar in the pool and I want to have full hookups and I want to have all these wonderful things and hot tubs. There's not a lot of people necessarily that do everything. But when people are new to camping, they don't know what their camping style is yet. So I feel like these books expose them to the whole spectrum, because that's one of the things that's so cool about American camping right now. There are so many different types of amazing camping experiences out there. I think we're in a golden age for American camping because of all the variety. And I feel like our books are helping that new owner figure out what they like. And for the veteran owner, they love the books too. It just helps them find the next place they're going to go to that they haven't been to yet.
But I think as before I got to know you guys and I just reviewed, kind of your portfolio of everything that you guys have done to contribute to RVing and camping, 2 words came to mind, and I don't want to sound cliche. Number 1 was authentic. You guys are honest about yourselves, your family, your experiences. And I think that's why you've been able to garner such a huge following. The other point, and I think that has probably been the number 1 thing that I've recognized in everything that you guys do, and you said the word nuance. We as manufacturers are very good about talking about our front caps, pass-through storage, and all the amenities. What we don't do is talk about those nuances of, hey, have you changed your anode rod? What does that? And national parks and privately owned parks, as you kind of spoke to in the beginning. I will interview a lot of parks because I just want to bring exposure to everybody, regardless of the brand that they own, of, hey, these are all the places you can go to. Here's Bob and Sally, so you know who to look for when you get there. And then what we've done on our podcast is we've allowed them kind of to talk about all the nice amenities and things they have, but there's still nuances. And what I've seen consistently in everything that you guys do is you expose those nuances. So everybody that embraces all of your books, your podcast, they go, you know what? If you guys don't know the Puglisis, they answer all the questions of those nuances. So our experience is very good because we're not just hearing the vanity about how great something is. They also talk about, hey, be sure you park here. And I think there's a lot of confusion, especially as manufacturers. We don't know all the requirements of national parks, the cost,
right.
the size limitations. Is it really an issue? And I think that you guys have done a phenomenal job of exposing those nuances so people do have a great experience and start, building some wonderful memories with their family.
Well, thanks, Willie. And I do think that word authentic gets used about us all the time, right? And I was going to say, yeah, being authentic, I should probably correct your intro and say we probably should get counseling, right? Like for all of this.
We've considered it.
If I'm going to be authentic.
Yeah, right. There's
probably,
hills and valleys, I'm sure.
that would probably be a good idea, right? It's a big joke, like whether your marriage can sustain backing an RV into a campground, right? That's a running joke so far.
Stephanie, where's your husband? He's changing the black tank. I'm not talking to him.
Yeah, we've made it.
Just get a pool.
As far as, like I said, let's get into some of those nuances though. So again, we're talking about where should we camp next? National parks coming April 4th, 2023. What are some of the, I guess, within the book that people are going to be able to get to? I know that, a lot of people think the only national parks we have are Yosemite and Yellowstone. You guys definitely eliminate that and point out more than just those two locations, correct?
Yeah, I think that was one of the driving forces behind this book, is all of the iconic parks are in the book. Okay. Zion's in there, Yellowstone's in there, Yosemite's in there. But with that flood of new RV owners that you're so well acquainted with, Willie, a lot of them immediately just bought their RVs and said, well, I'm going to Yellowstone. Right. Yosemite, and literally like 5 or 6 places that are now famous for being really overcrowded. And those are great places. We are not telling anyone not to go to Yellowstone or Yosemite or Zion, but we're presenting them with a world of other options for national park camping. And we looked at all of the national park units, not just the technical national parks. We looked at national lakeshores, national seashores, national monuments, national recreation areas. There's all of these different types of national park units that have camping either in them and without them, or one or the other. And so I think my hope is that you get this book and you go, oh, well, maybe I won't go to Olympic National Park. Maybe I'll go to North Cascades. Also, we're from the East Coast, and we have a few iconic national parks in the East, like Great Smoky Mountains, Shenandoah, and Acadia, but it doesn't compare to the West, or does it? Because we have these smaller national park units that have great camping experiences. Like Gettysburg has an incredible camping culture. There's not a campground in Gettysburg, but there's a whole culture of campgrounds outside of Gettysburg that could easily sustain a great week-long family vacation. So we wanted to present people with all of the camping options in and around all of the national park units. And my joke is we should have called it Where Should We Camp Next? National Park Units, but that does not roll off.
That doesn't sound good. And just to clarify what we did in this book to make sure that we were really helping everybody that camp the way they want to camp, right? Because that's so much a part of our ethos as a brand. We organize this by campgrounds inside the park and outside the park. Now, as Jeremy mentioned, not every national park unit has campgrounds inside the park, but if there were, we did put, it's so hard for people to navigate, right? So we put like which ones could be reserved in advance, right? Or like booking windows, how far in advance you go, what were size restrictions, were there hookups? So we did that, but then we also gave people options outside the park. And we didn't just see, the full hookup option outside the park, right? There may have been like some nice boondocking locations or a national forest location sometimes nearby. But then also we believe that it's just as valid to go to the national park and stay at a KOA with full hookups that makes you comfortable. And, you can leave the air conditioning on for your pup, when you go in and explore for the day. So we tried hard to make sure that whether you wanted hookups, no hookups, amenities, no amenities, that there is a good option for you, if not more.
And as RV owners, camping inside the parks, in the actual national park campgrounds, can be complicated, nuanced, and intimidating because it's sometimes hard to get larger RVs in there, and sometimes you just can't do that. And you can't just go to the website of this campground in Yellowstone and it's not crystal clear, like, can I bring my 38-foot fifth wheel in here or not? So we really tried to say, like, this one's big rig friendly. You could actually get your big rig into this campground inside Yellowstone, but this one you're not gonna want to go in here if you got something over 20 feet. So a lot of RV owners end up camping outside of the parks to some degree. And then inside the parks, you have a lot of tent campers and then RV owners that are in like teardrops, pop-ups, the smaller stuff works well in there. So there's two different cultures, really, the camping inside the park culture and the camping outside the park culture. And we've done both, and we love both. And I think that's just, again, why we're good at putting these books together, is we've had all these different experiences.
I think Cruiser has some of those little ones, right, Willie? If we want to give you a shout out.
We have some smaller ultralights. That's right. But the one thing too, and that again, I go back to that nuance term. There is a huge opportunity that you guys are fulfilling for people that say, hey, kids, quiet. We're driving here. They follow the GPS, and then they get there and they go, oh, we're here. And again, what I love about your book is, to your point, people get there and go, well, honey, hey, I know you're freaking out, but we can't park here. Well, where are we going to go? Well, if you get the book, Where Should We Camp Next? They can tell you just got to go a mile down the road, and that's where you can stay. So like I said, those are those nuances where I've heard hundreds of people, we are in the midst of coming to the end. I've aged a little. I've got gray hair of another RV show season. And that's what so many people have been telling me is, hey, we got the coach. We're very nervous. We're very uncomfortable because hearing all the features are nice. We get our little PDI walkthrough, and then we get home and we forgot everything. And again, that is where I've been hearing your guys' name is, what really got us comfortable? Jeremy and Stephanie. Like, we had so much anxiety about just having the coach going somewhere. And then I hear your names again everywhere I go. They've made it very comfortable for us to drive 800 miles here. And you know what? It was a great experience. They knew the correct information. When we got there, that's why we don't go anywhere without their books. So I applaud you guys. This is my first time meeting you both virtually. I hope to one day meet you guys face to face. But the work that you guys have put in through your passion of, again, being with your family, you guys are making a huge impact. And that's why it was important to our director of marketing, Leslie, to say, you have to talk to them sooner than later, because after the last 2 years of world record sales, everybody knows they're going to be, as we kind of talked offline, services, is going to be an opportunity for dealerships across North America, and making sure all these coaches are fixed and repaired so families that spent a lot of hard-earned money can go on these adventures. And then having you guys as such a tremendous resource for families that, now that we're post-COVID, they're comfortable. And it's still today, if you look at the cost of airlines, people say to me, well, with these rates going up and inflation, I'm like, guys, it's all relative. It's still the most affordable way for families to camp. But we
100%, people have lost sight of that over the last couple of years just because of extraordinary circumstances. And we've been saying the same thing to folks, Willie, that yes, other types of travel are coming back, and RV travel is more expensive than it used to be in a lot of different ways, right? But you can control your costs in a way with RV travel that you absolutely cannot with any other kind of travel. We've done enough of it, and what you're saying is true. We don't lie to people. We are truthful with our audience, and we really break it down, and we don't say, oh, well, the reason why we RV is because it's cheaper, and then we have to toe that line. It's true, right? We've done the other kinds of vacations, and we can still control our grocery cost, our activity cost, our accommodation cost in a way that you simply cannot when you're traveling other ways. And people are going to, like right now, airline tickets are higher than they've ever been. We used to actually fly with the kids a little bit more here and there. My kids are like, when are we getting back on a plane? And I'm like, I don't know, because I'm not rich. Because it really is. So I do think another thing is people are freaking out about campground costs. I actually think that we're going to see, I shouldn't say this, right? Recording, but I would predict that we're going to see a little bit of a softening of some of those campground prices. I think the industry got a little ahead of itself during those pandemic years and really saw that they were earning a price point that they probably never thought they could earn. And I think for everybody that's freaking out about that, take a deep breath. I think we're going to see better prices in the future.
I would bet money on it. I think it's happening already, because some of the most highest priced RV resorts ended up having a lot of empty sites at the end of last summer. So I think heading into this summer, I think that's already what Stephanie's saying already happened. And then also that's just talking about private campgrounds. When you look at the world of public campgrounds, there was no spike in prices because those are supplemented by the state and tax dollars and all those things. So you can still camp in state and national parks for $20 or $30 a night. But then what happened was, because all the private campgrounds and the KOAs and the resorts, because their prices went skyrocketed.
Oh yeah.
More pressure on the state park system, and everybody wanted to get into those state parks that were super popular. So it was hard to get sites at some of the most popular national park and state park campgrounds. But there's always other options. What we have discovered writing these books, for instance, sometimes the best place to camp on a national park trip is in a nearby national forest. Yellowstone and Grand Teton are surrounded by national forest campgrounds that are less crowded because most people don't know they're there and they're not looking for them.
Yeah. And I want to hit you guys up again. Your new book, you have over 300 answers to over 300 questions as that continues. I want to hit you guys up with, I call it the meat and potatoes portion of the podcast. I call it advice time, especially coming from you guys that know. Before we get into it, just a little, mention of your podcast. Can you guys just, for our listeners too, because I want everyone to follow you guys on yours, can you just kind of outline what the context of your show is all about, or some of the topics, or just open back and forth Q&A? Hey, Stephanie, help us. We're here. Jeremy, where do we go next? Can you kind of just talk a little bit about your podcast and the conversations that you have?
You want me to dive in?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I think that the thing I love about our podcast to some degree is its general interest in terms of all things camping, all things RVing. Like we don't just focus on any one thing like maintenance or destinations. We do everything. I think that there is a kind of a little bit of a slant towards like the campground and travel reviews, but we review gear. We talk about winterizing. We talk about parenting. I mean, the thing that I love about doing a podcast about RVing and camping is it's like, actually there's 10 topics, it's family, it's the truck, it's the RV, it's the campground, it's all of these different things. It's our relationship. So it's a bit general interest. What we've found over the years is that our episodes that get the most downloads are campground reviews. And that wasn't always the case. Like our podcast is in its 9th year. And that wasn't the case till about 3 years ago, Stephanie, where all of a sudden we realized, oh my God, the campground review episodes are spiking above the other episodes. And that coincided with us doing these books to some degree. There is an incredible desire for people to know where the good campgrounds are. And, Jeremy and Stephanie are here for you.
That's awesome. So with that being said, for all the listeners, again, you want a resource, tune in to their podcast. It's the RV Atlas. I would assume, and I just want to say it again for our listeners, do you guys allow some Q&A? You respond back to people if they have questions after the episodes?
Yeah, I mean, we actually go into we have a private Facebook group called the RV Atlas group. And one thing that we've been doing more of, and that Stephanie's really wanted to do more of, is like, we'll post a question. Like I recently posted a question, like, what modifications are you guys all making to your RVs this year? Because we just got this new RV and I'm thinking about like all the different modifications I want to make, and I want to install this, and I want to get a Truma AquaGo, and I want the RV lock keyless. So I was like, well, I wonder what is everybody else doing for mods this year? And there's like 50 answers of what everybody wants to, modify to their RVs. And Stephanie's point is always like, that's a podcast. We literally can take that and just talk about what everybody is, modifying in their own RVs this year. And then those people get a shout out and we're like, oh, John in Philadelphia wants to add this or whatever. And it does bring that community into the actual show.
Sure. Or the one thing that I see as a manufacturer, guess what we've done? Everybody's got solar now. So again, whether we talk to campers or not, guess what? You got a 30 amp charge controller. So if you want to use lead acid batteries, gel cells, lithium ion, you're all set. Here's your system, go. Well, how many people are using solar? And
yeah, well.
So there again, though, guys, is that gap of, like I said, we as a manufacturer, we sell them prepped, or you can get with 190 watt panel or 380 watts on our entire portfolio of brands. Other manufacturers have solar options as well. That seems to be like everybody's going solar now. But
we're lacking education there, and that's an area where the RV industry needs to step up, because the consumer doesn't really know the capability of the solar packages they're buying. And I see the comment over and over again from people like, well, I got a solar panel and I got a lithium ion battery and I went boondocking and my batteries were dead after 2 nights. And it's like, yep.
Because how many batteries did you have?
Sounds right.
One,
So people don't understand how much this is the brave new world for all of us that we're entering, because people want to boondock and they want to dry camp, and it requires an awful lot of research for the consumer, and there's not a ton of good information out there, I don't think, yet.
So maybe this is a precursor, hint to all listeners. The next book, Where Should We Put Solar Next, by the Puglisis.
That would be. Look, we were early with the solar. We worked with Go Power like 6 years ago. They installed, a massive system in our Jayco Octane toy hauler, and it's amazing when you get it right. When you get the capability that matches what you want to do with it. If you're the type of person that wants to boondock for 3 nights, and you get that solar system that allows you to boondock for those 3 nights, that is awesome, but if you want to boondock for 10 nights and you get a solar system that's only going to last you a night or two, then people end up frustrated.
Well, and again, like, I try to listen to you guys and others to say, look, 380 watts is not boondocking. It's enough to help with some of the batteries you choose. Mm-hmm. But I tell everybody, your operation is not predicated on how many panels you have. It comes down to your storage capacity, which is batteries. And that is a big distinction. And I think as we move forward, but that has been, like, again, the other hot trend that the industry is just flooding the consumers with. But then they're just like national parks. There's a lot of unknowns. How are they using it? What do they do for overcast days? So there is going to be.
Yeah. I mean, it's education, telling people, like, it's a little tricky, right? Sometimes it's used like as a trick, like, here, and you're solar capable, but no, the average consumer, and I hate it when people act like they're stupid because of this. They're not. The average consumer doesn't understand that you need an inverter to be able to run your coffee pot off of that solar. Like, when they're shopping for the first time, they don't get that their 110, is not, appliances are not going to be able to hook up. And this is just something that, like, that's that nuance, right, that we bring to the table all the time, because I don't think I'm smarter than that person. I just think I've been around the block a couple times and seen how this story plays out. And so now I can tell people, hey, you cannot run your coffee maker because they have that little port in the front of your RV.
Stephanie, I also know that if you do run your coffee maker, it's going to drain the living heck out of your batteries, right?
100%. Or
not want to run it anyway. I tell people all the time, you're going boondocking, bring a cooler, man. Turn your refrigerator off, right?
Yeah.
And people look at me cross-eyed, but I got the solar, so I could run everything. Well, if you're going to run everything, you're not going to have a lot of solar. So you do have to alter your behavior still when you're boondocking and you're camping somewhere and you're rolling off the solar. You got to be conservative.
So I think the good news is this: every time there's a big everybody jump on the bandwagon from the industry, you guys are going to be there and continue to be a resource for thousands of families across North America to bridge that gap, to say, all right, everybody, here's the emergence of blank. We're here to kind of help you with the nuances of once you have it and how to deal with it and do what's best for you guys. So let's get into advice time. I got some bullet points here, no right hooks. Let's kind of just keep it real simple. Again, all of this is coming from the Where Should We Camp Next, which I expect will be another best-selling book by the Puglisis. So let's start with question number 1. Choosing a national park besides Yellowstone and Yosemite, what do you guys recommend?
You think about what you want to do, right? There are some national parks that are hiking parks. There are some that are driving parks. There are some that are wildlife. There are some that are rock climbing. Every national park is not the same. I have seen people show up in flip-flops at the visitor center of the Smokies looking like, where do I go? Right. And it's like, the Smokies is a hiking park. Like, you're not going to see a lot of it unless you have your hiking shoes on and you get out there. Right. And the same as, like, Yellowstone for us was actually a change because it was more of a driving park, right? You're like driving and driving and driving and looking at things and getting out and getting back in. So really decide what you want to do and pick a national park that enables you to do it, because they're not one size fits all.
And Stephanie has always said that a national parks trip is not a Disney World trip. National parks can be dangerous. And one thing we've learned over the years of doing all this research and visiting all these parks, is I think literally every single national park has a page on their website about like dangers in the park, wildlife rules. You need to go read that because it's different at Yellowstone than it is at Olympic. You're out in nature, you're in the wild, and there are going to be different risks. So acquaint yourself with what the problems could be. We were in Yellowstone, and those geothermal pools, you're not supposed to dip your feet in or touch them. People, like, your skin can melt off. And we saw people who were letting their dogs drink water.
Poor
you know,
dogs. Yeah.
Attic Spring, and there's signs everywhere, by the way. But acquaint yourself with what the risks are, and don't go into a wild place, thinking you're in an amusement park.
And for anybody that wonders, is it safe to say that no matter what national park you go to, do not pet the wild buffalo?
Never.
I hope we've all seen enough video, okay? But apparently every year there's somebody, right? It needs like that TikTok dumb ways to die, right? Like I feel like we could do an entire TikTok dumb ways to die trend on just people in national parks. So
Really?
If anybody wants to do that.
Can I steal that for a book title? Never Pet the Wild Buffalo.
Yes, you are welcome. Like I said, you guys are going to write a solar book. That could be the follow-up as well. Okay, outside of a national park then, are the recommendations any different if you're finding a campground that's best for the family?
Yeah, I think about everybody being happy, right? That's a big thing with family travel with us. So don't just, some people are like, oh, the kids will be fine, right? Like we like this. And then there's also like the kid-centric model, right? Where you're doing everything for the kids and like putting the kids first. I really think it's possible with campground experiences to find a good match. Our spring break is going to be an example of this. The kids really wanted a certain campground where we were going because it's like kid heaven.
Yeah.
And we were like, well, no, we're going to go to this one because this is kid heaven and adult heaven, right? Because it has all the hot tubs and the heated pools, and it's just a resort, the pickleball courts and blah, blah, blah. So we picked our spring break vacation based on like something for everyone. And that's a big part of kind of my operating ethos as a mom.
I would say too, if you're a new RVer and you want to do a big national park trip, but you're not feeling confident enough to camp inside the park, or you have too big of a rig or whatever, I'd give a nod to KOA. I think that over the years, they've been around since the 1960s. Just they have a culture of campgrounds around the national parks. And I just, in our experience over 12 years of RVing there, I don't work for KOA in any way right now. It's been years since I've done any work for them. They tend to have good options around almost like every national park I can think of. So it could be a good starting point. If you're just looking for that place with full hookups, pull through site, pool and playground for the kids. So after you hike all morning, the kids can come back and kind of have some fun. KOA tends to work well for that.
And a sub question of this then, hidden gems. Should people be open-minded to trying them because there's a lot of good that can come from doing a hidden gem location?
We've had some of our most magical experiences at places that, believe me, are not on everybody's bucket list. I think about this. I was just talking about a trip that we took years ago where we ended up in the Fancy Gap area of the Blue Ridge Mountains. That trip, this is this little tiny place right near Mount Airy, which is just this really unique, lovely town. We had some of the best days, just 3 days exploring that area. The boys were so young. They still remember it. They tell funny stories about it. And really, I think RVing has helped us discover more hidden gems, because what happens is when you're like taking a plane somewhere, when you're like taking this big vacation, you look for those big destinations. With RVing, it was almost like we started to do the opposite, and we started to look for those hidden treasures and say, well, we're going here. Where can we stop along the way? It changed our mindset a little bit traveling with an RV.
That is such a great point, is that in an RV, you are stopping on the way. If you're going to Great Smoky Mountains National Park, you're also looking for that cool place to spend a night halfway there. Or if you're flying, you're never doing that. And that trip Stephanie's mentioning, where we loved Fancy Gap and we loved Mount Airy, which is, Andy Griffith, the Andy Griffith show is inspired by Mount Airy. That's a national parks trip, because the Blue Ridge Parkway is a national park unit, and that whole stretch of beautiful parkway has both private campgrounds with full hookups, and it has national park campgrounds, NPS campgrounds, all along the Blue Ridge Parkway. That's an epic national parks trip, but most people just like shoot to Great Smoky Mountain National Park, and just kind of go right past it. Stop along the way. You have an RV. A lot of the most magical memories we have are the places we stopped on the way to the destination.
If any of you have more questions like this, or how to stay sane, avoid the board alerts, keep your marriage copacetic, you can get all of that answered by this amazing couple here, either on their podcast, which again has over 4 million downloads. So it's clear they've built a great community, and the conversations are just being authentic and open about life and experiences on the open road. It's clear to me that you guys know a lot about destinations, how to camp, and how to get there. So my question to you both is, how does everybody get to you on social media, website, your books? Give me the rundown.
Yeah, so you can listen to the podcast in any of your, favorite podcast places. We're pretty much there in every of them. Our website's thervatlas.com. Our private Facebook group is actually a very sort of intimate community. We keep it small. We keep it super highly curated. We do not allow Facebook shenanigans to happen in our Facebook group. So if you want a friendly place to ask questions, we make sure it stays friendly there. And then of course we're on Instagram at the RV Atlas. We're everywhere at the RV Atlas. Find us. Did I miss anything, Jeremy?
I'm trying to do better on TikTok. We're on YouTube. We're trying to be in all the places. There's so many places to be.
So my recommendation to all the listeners, just Google Jeremy and Stephanie Puglisi. You'll see all their award-winning books. You'll see all of their work on the podcast, and you'll pretty much hear about them at every RV show across North America. That being said, Jeremy, Stephanie, I want to have you guys back again, maybe post, the release of your book here again, April 4th, 2023. Where should we camp next? National parks. I have the best-selling authors here, and you guys are going to hear a lot more from both of them. Jeremy, Stephanie, thank you so much for taking a little bit of time to just bring us up to speed on all the great value that you provide to everybody in North America. And thank you for being a guest on the Launching Life's Journeys podcast.
Oh, Willie, it was so nice to be with you and chat, and maybe we'll see you at the campground one of these days.
Yeah, or we'll see you at the RV show. Maybe we can meet there, because we'll have a table there for the first time selling our books.
At what show?
Yeah, at Hershey.
Okay. So there it is, folks. Meet Jeremy and Stephanie at the Hershey RV show this coming year. All right. We will we'll catch up with you guys again soon, but thank you again both so much.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Would love to come back anytime. Thank you, Willie.
I'm Will Miller, and I want to thank you for tuning in to the Launching Life's Journeys podcast, brought to you by Heartland RVs. Stay tuned for our next destination.